Hi there and welcome. Welcome to Leadershipisation, all things leadership. My name is Beth Bergen and I'm a global leadership and communication coach. My focus is on building influential leaders, and for me, this is all about executives and managers and business owners learning and building their ability to lead and communicate with clarity, with confidence, and with absolute impact. And I'm here with Leadershipisation most Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. I talk a lot about leadership intelligence. And for me, leadership intelligence it's a toolkit. It's a wide range of tools that you've got access to and that you can utilize as you need them. So as we're going through with the leadershipization presentations, what happens is that I take some of those leadership tools, sometimes more than once, but sometimes only one of those leadership intelligence tools. And what I do is we work our way through them and we think about how that might apply. And today, what I want to look at is the challenge of dealing with employees who always make excuses. Now, this is a really tough gig. It's a really tough gig. And it starts with us noticing what we're noticing. And then we need to move fairly quickly to actually sort it out. Now, what's crucial, and we'll go through this in the 5 steps that we have a look at in a moment, but what's absolutely crucial is that you get to the root cause of those excuses if you can, so that you can deal with that. Because very often, the reason for the excuses comes down to either a lack of understanding, a lack of motivation, or a lack of the right skills. And you can see that perhaps there's something you can do about a couple of those and nothing you can do about the others. So let's have a look at the 5 key steps that I've pulled together to help you to deal with those employees that are always making excuses. The first one is this: clarify expectations and goals. So this is all about providing that clarity. Now, in here, you need to be really specific, and this is specific about things like the requirements of the task, the deadlines, the outcomes, the standard of the work that you want. Be really, really specific. It's also useful in providing that clarity if what you're able to do is to provide some context. So this is all about determining the purpose for the work and how the work that they're doing might fit into the bigger picture. Okay? Now, quite often we think, oh, it's okay, just do what we're asking you to do. For some people, the excuses come because they can't see that bigger picture. They can't see that context. The next thing for you to do in order to complete this step is to actually document those expectations. So if you've had a conversation with them, put those expectations, the requirements, the deadlines, the standards, the outcomes, those kinds of things, put that down in writing for them. And then ask for confirmation that they understand once you've got it down in writing. So have the conversation, check to see then, all good, yep, put it down in writing and check again. Do you have confirmation from them that they actually understand what's expected of them? Okay, so that's the first step. The second step is to problem solve those excuses. Problem solve those excuses. So accept the excuse and then delve into it. Ask some probing questions, or what we talked about before as being that gentle curiosity. So here's where, when were they assigned the task? What steps have they taken so far? What resources do you need? So that all the time, what you're doing is focusing on solutions. Obviously, there are some reasons that things aren't going well. Gentle curiosity, probing questions, focus on solutions with their input. What's important about having their input is because you get their input and you're likely to have buy-in from them. Okay? The third step in dealing with employees who make lots of excuses is to remind yourself that the accountability actually sits with them. If what you're doing is providing that clarity, if what you're doing is ensuring that you've done some active problem solving, then make sure that you allocate that accountability to them. And this allows you to monitor their progress against the outcomes, with a reminder that busyness or activity, if it doesn't achieve the outcomes that you need, then that's not accountability. They're simply looking busy. So all the time, when what you're doing is allocating the accountability to them, you can go in and provide feedback. You can provide some feedback and some guidance around their progress. You can provide some feedback about their performance and areas where there might be some potential improvement. Yeah? The accountability sits with them. It's also important when you're holding people accountable that you help them to communicate what the consequences might be. So they've made lots of excuses. You've problem solved that. You've given them some solutions for it. Make sure that you're communicating with them about those consequences for them, for the team, and potentially for the project, so that they understand that there's a ripple effect if the work you're asking them to do doesn't get done within the required timeframes. Yeah? The fourth step for you to take is this. This is where I want you to start to actually identify what that root cause might be. What's the root cause for the excuses? Is it a lack of understanding? Again, those gentle probing questions. Is it a lack of understanding? That's cool. You can give them some more training or some more support around that. Is it a lack of motivation? Maybe there are some incentives that you can use. Maybe it's about actually re-engaging them, figuring out what their motivation is by spending some time talking with them. Perhaps it's the workload. Maybe what's going on here is that they've got so much to actually do, they haven't learned to say no. Maybe that workload simply isn't realistic. Now, the only way you're going to figure that out is by actually looking at what their workload is, by talking to them about their workload and identifying, again, coming back to that clarity, that really clear expectations around timelines and outcomes and responsibilities, all of those kinds of things, right? That's what you're doing to set up that accountability or that culture of accountability. So make sure that what you're doing is checking to see, is it realistic? Because if they've got too much to do and they haven't learned to say no yet, their workload may well need some adjustment. And if it needs some adjustment, you're the ideal person to actually be doing that for them. Obviously, with their buy-in and with the buy-in of the others who have provided them with some tasking. Now, the other potential root cause or an addition to the root cause might well be their level of confidence. Some people simply don't have the confidence to actually start a task. They spend a lot of time thinking about how they're going to start, and then they don't actually start. So it's a really good idea to make sure that you're checking for that, to give them some encouragement. And this is why, that giving them that feedback on their progress and their performance is so important. Excuse me. Thank you. Because you're giving them that feedback, it means that you can also give them some encouragement. When you're giving them that encouragement, they're likely to build their confidence up a bit. It's also important when you're identifying the root cause that you check to see, is there the potential that this person has made a mistake either with this project or with something else in the past? Because very often our confidence is attached to success. We want to see that we're doing something and doing it well. And so, of course, what happens is if they've made a mistake, they're going to have lots of excuses about why they shouldn't go on, why they don't want to start, why they haven't had a chance to do it yet, because they don't have enough confidence in themselves. Perhaps they've made a mistake, they know it's a mistake, they don't want to admit it, so it's easier for them just to kind of ignore the project. Yeah? Just ignore it and just to make those excuses to you. Step number 5. Step number 5 is all about following up. So this is about you actually keeping a record of what's happened. Keep a record of the excuses. Keep a record of the actions that you've taken. Keep a record of those conversations. And make sure that you're making a note of what the employee responses are. It's important that you're consistent. So do this and do it really well with not only with those people who make excuses, but be the same with everyone. That's what's really important, that you are the same with everyone. Now, in order for you to build this feeling of confidence, in order for you to really encourage your employee or your team member to get involved and to get going, it's okay to talk about the fact that these things were unacceptable. Like that they were unacceptable, however they were in the past, and that what you're doing is focusing on the behavior that is expected into the future. And so as a leader, one of the things that you can be saying is things are going to be different from now on. What's important is that you're able to say that authentically, that you say it like you mean it rather than just kind of saying it. Yeah? Say it like you mean it. Things are going to be different from now on. Now, the key here, don't ignore the excuses. Come back and get familiar with them in terms of that gentle curiosity, those probing questions. You want to understand what the root cause is. It's also important that you don't ignore the fallout from the excuses. What do I mean by that? There will be behaviors that others can see. Others in your team can see there's a whole lot of excuses going on here. And generally, if what you're doing is allowing one person to get away with something, you're going to lose some of the respect that your team has for you. And you lower the standard of everyone because you're allowing that person to get away with poor behavior. So don't ignore that fallout. It may be a really awesome opportunity for you to help to break the patterns of the excuses of your team member or to learn. Now, the other key fact is this. You're going through this. You're listening to the excuses. You're identifying the root causes. You're attempting to give them support. You're following up. You're giving them feedback. All of those things we've already talked about. It's not about an apology. An apology isn't enough. Saying sorry isn't enough. Saying sorry and offering an excuse isn't enough. What's really important is that there is changed behavior. That's vital. I want to now have a look at some really good questions that you can be asking to help to identify what those root causes are, to help to problem solve the issue so that you can get things moving. Now, the first one is this. How could this have been prevented? How could this have been prevented? This isn't about casting blame. This isn't about saying you did this, you did that, you did whatever. This is about just clearly, let's examine it without the emotion attached to it. What could we have done that would have prevented this from happening? Yeah, a problem-solving focus. When you do this without blame, your team members, your peers, the people that you're working with, they'll get on board and start to identify what are strategies to make sure it doesn't happen again. The second one is this. What can we put in place right now to make sure it doesn't happen again? So this one is all about, again, without blaming, poking the finger, any of that stuff, what is it that we could do right now to make sure that the same issue doesn't happen again? What we're doing is looking to overcome the excuses and actually get something happen. A third awesome question is this one. If we can't prevent it, how do we control the damage? If we can't prevent it, how do we control the damage? Now, this isn't just about your reputation. This is all about the fallout, the damage, the timelines that we might have not made, the poor product, the failure to deliver, whatever it might be. So let's examine excuses into those three questions. I'll give you an example. Perhaps one of your team makes mistakes all the time, yeah? And if you think about it as the cause, it might be that they're not giving it enough time. Perhaps they don't have the skill to do whatever it is. Maybe they're not giving it enough attention to detail, or perhaps they haven't got that clarity that you were talking about. What sort of reasonable measures could you take to make sure that this doesn't happen again? You could give them a checklist that they could run through. You could ask someone else to proofread what was going on. You could provide them with greater clarity. Perhaps you set more reasonable deadlines. Maybe it's about better time management by the person who's doing the job. And also, it might be useful if they had greater clarity about their own priorities so that they were aware of the deadlines. How can we prevent this from happening again? Maybe a conversation if we run out of time, or if we don't have the resources that are required to actually complete the task. So what we see here is that communication, noticing what you're noticing, being gently curious, asking those probing questions, stepping into your role as a leader is always really vital here, because our focus is on problem solving. We want to move them away from that pattern of excuses, and give them something else to focus on. Now, what I love about those 3 questions that I shared with you earlier is that these can really easily become part of the culture, because what they do is they encourage ownership of the work. And when we've got ownership of the work, we're going to reduce the bottlenecks, we're going to reduce delays, we're going to reduce errors, we're going to reduce frustration that people feel because they're sitting there waiting for somebody else to get something done. And it's also going to reduce the number of excuses that you're listening to, or that you're having to listen to. Now, as a leader, what's important here is that you're prepared to model this behavior, because if you model this behavior with your own and you're not running around making excuses for why you're the bottleneck, why you haven't made the thing, met the timelines, why you haven't made the decision, or whatever it might be, if you're modeling the behavior, then it's easier for you to be able to hold your team accountable to the very behavior that you're modeling. Yeah. So, worst case scenario, if obviously you can't make any headway with all of those excuses, then perhaps it's about moving the person on. Now, if you're going to move the person on, what's really important is that you followed all of the HR processes that you need to be doing in your company or in your country. Understand what those local labour force requirements and what those regulations are, so that you don't make an error in the way that you're doing it. All of the documentation that I asked you to keep will really make a difference. So own that. Don't put up with the excuses. Make sure that you're noticing what you're noticing, because very quickly, someone who's making excuses all the time that you allow to get away with things, those people can bring down the positivity and the culture of the team and the organization that you're leading. So that's it for today. Thank you so much. If you've got any questions or comments, pop them in the platform that you're watching this on, and we'll get back to you. If you're watching a replay, #replay would be awesome. Remember that it's all about communicating with influence. This is an important leadership intelligence tool. Now, I offer a 30-day Say It Smarter program, which will have you, it'll blow your mind about the kinds of things that you will learn about the foundations of communication. And it provides you with a framework to say it smarter and a 30-day action plan to be able to improve your communication with your team, up, out, and down. Reach out if you'd like some more information about that. See you next week. Bye now.